Oh, kia ora koutou. This is Larissa here from Magical Moon Astrology. I'm here to have a quick korero with you about this week's total lunar eclipse, which is taking place in the sign of Taurus. This is a really, really potent and interesting energy. It's one of the, it's going to be the last lunar eclipse, total lunar eclipse, for the next 3 years. I've just been researching it. It's kind of quite an interesting phenomenon. I've been learning that basically what it means is that the moon falls into the Earth's shadow. And so another name for it is, we call this the blood moon. So the color of the moon turns red because of some of the light from the Earth's atmosphere, the way that it falls on the moon. It comes up as quite a reddish colour, but that's slowly what will happen. And so in Aotearoa, New Zealand, basically the height of the eclipse will be, it'll be exact at 2 minutes past midnight on Wednesday the 9th. So this coming week. So basically on Tuesday night, if you feel like watching the eclipse, I mean it's about 5 hours and 54 minutes, and it starts. You can start noticing it slowly from 9:02 p.m. and it goes till 2:56 p.m. And that's visible in Aotearoa at that time. But to see it at its most obvious, when it will be reddest and at its most bloodiest colour. I kind of love that. It will be at 2 minutes past midnight. So yeah, if you're interested in seeing that, I was just reading that that it's going to be another 3 years for another one of these to happen. So this is like a really amazing opportunity, even if you're not particularly interested in just astrology, and you just are fascinated by the night sky. That's a beautiful, interesting thing to do. But if you are interested in the astrology, this is a really potent time. I know that as astrologers we often talk about that, but the astrology has just been really wacky for the last few years, which is completely unsurprising given the state of the pandemic, and it's probably going to continue into next year. And so, but there's a lot of opportunity for transformation and change. I think, like from a lot of the podcasts and videos and things that I've been watching, and really taking note of what's happening on a global scale, I think that it's an opportunity, I guess, to upgrade, or we're sort of like downloading new ways of thinking and being, and that's really, really important, and that's really obvious to see in the astrology. So to bring it home, this full moon lunar eclipse that's happening this Wednesday, what we can expect, if we're not already noticing it, is unpredictable change. Things that are sort of shocking and coming out of nowhere, and the reason why is because the full moon is pretty much exactly conjunct the planet Uranus. So they're sitting right next to each other. Uranus is a very unpredictable planet. It isn't necessarily it's not necessarily a negative thing, but it is like it sort of can just bring events that are shocking or unpredictable. It can bring a sense of instability and uncertainty. So if you're noticing that you're feeling particularly kind of anxious or a wee bit fractious, that's not to be, that's not surprising at the moment. Also, what is sort of exacerbating this particular tension with this full moon is that the planet Saturn is also squaring this setup. So basically the sun and the moon are opposite each other, and that is what creates the full moon, right? And then we've got the planet Uranus next to the moon, and then up here, so if you can imagine a triangle, we've got the planet Saturn, which is in a tense square. This is a tense aspect to the planet Uranus and the moon, but it is also over here squaring in a point of tension the sun and the planet Venus, and they are sitting in Scorpio. And so there are a lot of themes around needing to release and let go, these kind of darker themes which are connected to Scorpio. Full moons are about endings and release, and but also there's a sense of new beginnings because the North Node is sitting in Taurus. Now, so a lot of this kind of jargon doesn't matter, but I guess the flavor of what I'm trying to explain is that with eclipses, our shadow self really comes up. These are the parts of ourselves that we may not have been previously conscious of. We may be the parts of ourselves that we're uncomfortable with, that we don't want to look at. And on a global level, this is really significant. There is a lot of conversation around the breakdown of the economy, particularly because in the polarity of Taurus and Scorpio, they're both signs that are connected to money and resources. So this particular full moon, with Taurus, it is about our own resources and how we make money. It is about agriculture. It is about what we do with the land, how we are with the land. And so with Uranus there and the North Node there is this absolute focus that is coming into the collective consciousness on how we can be progressive in utilizing the land and the resources, and how we take care of the planet. This is why the astrology explains this is why we are talking about these issues so much at the moment. But when I talked about that 10th square to Saturn up here in this relationship, Saturn wants to hold on to the old ways of doing things. It is resistant to change, so there might be a flavor of like rules or rigidity coming up. You might notice that there's I'm kind of noticing it myself, like the particular polarities in thinking, like even, for example, which I kind of found fascinating in my own neighborhood, there was all these conversations on Facebook last night about fireworks and whether or not people should be allowed to let them off in residential areas, and how they should be phased out, and we should be focusing on other things like parihaka and being kind of like, like more relevant to Aotearoa and things like that. And I really appreciate that those conversations are happening, and then kind of being able to see how people are holding on to, no, but it's just fun, like you need to like chill out and lighten up, and so I think that there is a, and you can sort of tie it in with the pandemic, with whether to vaccinate or not, and conspiracy theories around the pandemic, and it's sort of impossible to talk about the astrology without talking about the pandemic, because it is so obvious that that these different ways of thinking, that there's a point of tension. There's no coincidence that this full moon lunar eclipse is happening on the American election. There's so many surprises, and it's also the fact that this is a real global scale influence. Like, we're going to be seeing really massive changes happening, but it's not without resistance. This full moon, there is a lot of tension associated with it. So if you're feeling kind of wound up, tense, just pay attention to it. Being in Taurus, it is a great opportunity to really get grounded, like doing those kind of beautiful Taurian type things, which are to do with our senses. They're about like getting in touch with nature and slowing down and being sensual, and like cooking food and massage and yoga, mindfulness, meditation, things like that sort of keep us grounded, because this energy is up. It's definitely heightened, and so you might notice that people are the other thing that's really important to acknowledge here is the Mars retrograde. And so I was going to say, you might notice that people are perhaps expressing their rage, or more in touch with anger at the moment, or frustration or tension or irritability, and that's because the planet Mars is going backwards through the sign of Gemini, and that kicked off, I think, it was about October the 30th or 31st, and that's going to be happening until January or so next year, and so a good 2.5 months. And what that means for us is it's an opportunity to be able to review. You know, retrogrades are about reviewing, but it's also because it's about Mars, it's about connecting with our, you know, Martian type things like assertion and motivation and drive and you know, and we may feel a bit stuck because it's retrograde. So it's about being able to get in touch with what is it that motivates us, what is it that gets us out of bed in the morning, and but also like, you know, like how do we express our anger, how are we with that, you know. So some, I guess, some guidance around that would be like, if you're noticing that you're feeling particularly frustrated or angry or ragey, you know, a great way to get in touch with that is to do some venting and ranting and some unconscious streaming, you know, writing and things like that, to be able to get it out, because you might notice that either yourself or others or both are just kind of venting at the moment and just getting stuff off of their chest, and being a bit thoughtless. And I think that, you know, that energy there is infused in the setup of the full moon. And I forgot to mention that Venus is right next to the sun as well, with this full moon setup in Scorpio. So there is a lot about intimate relationships and emotional connection and things like that. So you know, relationships are really up at the moment as well, like how we are in our dynamics, and it's a great period to just notice that. And so, you know, with the shadow coming up with the full moon eclipse, I think it's really important to just observe it, but don't engage with it. You know, like it's really important that I guess we just slow down. You know, like we might notice that old unconscious behaviors are coming through, like compulsive behaviors or sort of like a darker side of us. You know, this is linked to Scorpio and the shadow as well. And I think that it's really important that we just let it kind of wash over us. You know, we don't need to engage with it. I was listening to another fabulous astrologer talk about this eclipse, and she pointed out, you know, with the planet Jupiter, it's gone back into the sign of Pisces in the last week or so, and I think that you know, with Jupiter being in Pisces, it's really strong. It's the planet that rules Pisces, one of the rulers, and Neptune being the other, and they're both in Pisces at the moment, and it's an opportunity to imagine and daydream, you know, fantasize about the world that we want to create, because by using our imagination and our visualization, we start to, it's the initial seeds that we're planting and the steps that we can then take to create this world that we want, you know, because it's really easy to get bogged down into what's wrong, you know, and who's the problem, and we get really stuck into blame. And I think that it's a fabulous opportunity to be able to do some really fantastic work on ourselves, which is about being compassionate and gentle and kind, and that starts within, you know. And if we can learn to be like that with ourselves, and when we make mistakes or we act out of integrity, you know, like as I always say, just bringing it home and being really gentle with ourselves, and then we do learn to project that onto others. So it's a great projection, you know, that we expect kindness in return and compassion in return, but we've got to start with ourselves. And when others aren't like that, we have to dig deep, you know, because a lot of people are really disgruntled and distressed at the moment, and it's because we're in a really fractious time in a changing world. And so the more of us that can work to be balanced and grounded, centered, present, that then gives us an opportunity to dream in the world that we want. And I really appreciate knowing that there are others out there who think like this. I think that that's a really beautiful thing, and let's not give up, you know. So be kind to yourself, be really gentle, go slow, you know, keep it simple. And if you're noticing that conflicts are coming up at the moment, just try to gently step out of them. You know, whether you're initiating them or somebody else's, just step out of them. Now's not the time to try and work stuff out or get to the bottom of things. I think it's just like a time of trying to bring in some peace and slow down, get grounded, do what brings you pleasure and rest. You know, this is exhausting. Eclipses are exhausting. That's just part of, you know, understanding them. So yeah, would love any feedback from you. If you've got anything you want to say, please leave a comment or get in touch with me. And also, if you're interested in having a natal chart reading, or if you've got any questions about your chart, really happy to do that. I'm starting to do more readings at the moment, and I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, so take care of yourself, and thanks for listening.